Hello, my name is Schexnayder, and today, for my part of the presentation, I will be talking about the Palace of Versailles, architecture with power. We will be going to an overview and the significance of the palace. The Palace of Versailles was originally a hunting lodge for Louis VIII. It was transformed by Louis IX into a massive royal palace starting in 1661. It became the center of the French government and the king's permanent residence. It is one of the largest and most expensive architectural projects of the Baroque era. Even today, it has changed architecture in its history. Some of the key elements is it has a huge scale, long facades and massive courtyards. The strong symmetry shows everything is aligned to represent order and control. The grand ceremonial spaces, especially the famous Hall of Mirrors, has a total of 357 mirrors, all reflecting sunlight in the hallways. The heavy ornamentation shows gilding, sculptures, and painted ceilings. The integration with the landscape and the palace itself show a uniform design. The significance of the Palace of Versailles is it really set the standard for all royal architecture across Europe. It became the model for Baroque palaces in Austria, Germany, and Russia. Even today, it still represents the height of the royal power of the Baroque era.
Howdy, my name is Isabella Perez, and this is my presentation on the Palace of Versailles, the power of Baroque architecture. My group mates are Mathias and Sean. Baroque architecture started in Italy in the 16th century and later spread throughout Europe. It's known for being very grand and decorative with a lot of detail compared to earlier architectural styles. It became especially popular during the Counter-Reformation because the Catholic Church used it to create impressive buildings that reflected its power and influence. Some of the main characteristics of Baroque architecture are its large-scale curved forms and detailed decoration. You'll often see features like domes, frescoes, sculptures, and a lot of gold detailing. Another important element is the use of light and shadow to make spaces feel more dramatic, and the architecture, paintings, and sculptures are all designed to work together as one space.
Hi, I'm Mathias Deicla, and this is Versailles in relation to political power. So, first is the construction of Versailles as a political tool. So, what was Versailles before the palace? Sean talked about this, but I figured I'd go a little more in depth. Versailles was originally built as a hunting estate for Louis XIII. Before the palace was a simple brick house surrounded by marshland and was mocked by nobles as a house of cards due to its brick and stone construction. The initial construction after the death of Louis XIII, the estate fell into disrepair for 2 decades before Louis XIV, pictured on the slide, took an interest and ordered a palace constructed. So the architects behind this, and this is pretty important, the main architects behind Versailles were Louis Laval of the initial expansion, Jules Hardouin-Mansart, who designed the palace's halls, and finally André Lenorte, who was the gardens architect. All of these men were royally appointed and loyal to King Louis XIV. So keep that in mind as we get into the next slide. So how did Versailles actually project power after its completion? So the palace was a massive horizontal spread that overwhelms a viewer. This was essential for Louis XIII, who sought to tame the French nobility and consolidate power for himself. Now, art within Versailles portrays Louis XIV as the sun god, often as Apollo, or due to being the central layout of the palace, consolidated around his bedroom. Now, nobles themselves were required to live at Versailles, which is also part of its size, but however, that gave Louis XIV oversight over court politics, because mind you, they can't really get away or get up to any shenanigans in the countryside, and because of this, Versailles was the ultimate political tool for King Louis XIV. Thank you.